Juicy fruit gum and a $5 bill. These two simple things are what remind me most of my great-grandma Margaret. She was lively and imaginative, finding fun in the most unpromising situations. She could raise a laugh and always had a wild scheme afoot. But most of all, my great-grandma Margaret was fearless. Today I'll be talking about my great-grandma's early life, her middle life, her later life, and the legacy that she left behind. Let's start by taking a look at her early life. Margaret was born on January 2, 1917, to Lily Inez Heath Irvin and John Robert Irvin on a ranch in the Zuni Mountains of New Mexico. Her father had come to the area as a surveyor and settled there, marrying her mother. Sadly, her father was shot and killed when she was only 4 years old in Gallup, New Mexico, on December 1, 1921. He was going to the bank to make the last payment on his ranch when a man shot him and took his bank record, leaving no proof that the property was his. But Margaret and the rest of her family continued to live on the land for another 3 years. The next tragedy came when she was only 13 years old. Her mother died, and Margaret was left with the huge responsibility to take care of her younger sibling. Margaret moved to the Jemez Mountains, where she helped her Aunt Beulah in a cookhouse for the loggers around the area. That winter, she went to the dance with a group of friends where she met the love of her life, Paul. She finished 8th grade that winter, which was the last of her formal education. Margaret and Paul loved to go to dances. Her Uncle Leland would drive the log truck with no cab, so they had to sit on the log banks or wherever they could find a spot. They would go to different people's houses or to the schoolhouse just to dance. Life was challenging and hard for Margaret in her early life, but it prepared her for the challenges she was going to face in her middle life. Margaret and Paul got married on July 31, 1933, in Bernalillo, New Mexico, and started their married life living in a tent in the middle of the woods. They had a lot of rough times, and sometimes they would only have a bag of popcorn to eat for dinner. They had 5 children, one of which is my Grammy Elaine, and most of them were born in the tent. Sadly, their youngest boy, Stonewall Jackson Ramsey, didn't make it past a year. In a journal, she wrote, "Paul was going to try and sell all we had to try and help Stoney. We tried everything we knew. Every avenue was exhausted trying to save Stoney. Our entire family suffered, singly and all together." This was probably one of the most hardest times for the Ramsey family. In 1949, they moved back to Chevron and set up another sawmill. They lived there for about a year and then decided to move to Nankis, Colorado. As you can see, the trials in Margaret's life never ended, but they transformed her into the strong woman she would become in her later life and the person I remember as a young child. In 1981, her son Howard and daughter-in-law Claire were both tragically killed by a drunk driver in Gallup, New Mexico. This left their 6 kids in the hands of Margaret and Paul. A few years down the road, Margaret made the decision to be baptized into the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. She was a faithful member and always had a great desire to serve and help others. On December 17, 1982, her husband Paul died of a stroke. This was a hard situation, seeing how much Margaret loved and cared for Paul. Margaret lived the next 16 years in Winslow, Arizona, to be close to some of her children, and then died in 1998. Even with a life full of hardships, Margaret loved life, and with her example, she left a legacy to be admired. Margaret was always putting people before her, even in her hardest times. Everyone that has met her can say that they have never heard her talk bad about anyone, because she always looked for the good in everyone. You're probably wondering, why the Juicy Fruit Gum and $5 bill remind me of my grandma Margaret. Margaret would buy this gum by the cases and took it everywhere she went. Every time we went to her house, we would always count on getting that one piece of Juicy Fruit Gum. On the day of her funeral at the cemetery, hundreds of pieces of Juicy Fruit Gum surrounded her casket and the ground around it. Margaret also never forgot a birthday. She would always send a birthday card with a $5 bill and, of course, a stick of Juicy Fruit Gum for the whole family. It's no question why Margaret is a great example of a hardworking person. From the time she was a teenager, she had the responsibility to raise her siblings. Her hard work and perseverance are definitely traits to admire. As Paul said, we will handle it because we are strong people. Seeing all that my great-grandmother did in her life, I am proud to be named after her and hope to someday possess the same qualities that she did. I truly admire the life she lived, and I recognize the character she had to endure the hardships that she went through. Every time I see that bright yellow package of juicy fruit gum, a flood of memories wash over me and remind me of the woman who could accomplish anything.